Hello, friends. You are listening to The Witch Haven, Part 6. Please subscribe to Audiobooks with Keeper of Law Stories for more such audiobooks. Thank you, and let's start. Chapter 16. Saturday comes too soon, and I not soon enough. For once, I bound out of bed before the others, too nervous to stay still any longer. I tossed and turned throughout the night, plagued with dreams of eyeless faces, drowned bodies, and ghosts. I never saw Finn, though my horrible nightmares last night were all my own. The day passes like molasses through a sieve, and by the time later afternoon rolls around and Maxine comes to fetch me from history class, my body is so full of nerves. I feel as if I might crawl out of my skin. I meet Lina up in our room, and we help each other dress. I came to school in my dingy work dress, and Lina came in her school uniform. So Maxine is kind enough to let us borrow her clothes. Maxine's dresses are beautiful, fine seamed, and dripping in family money. We are all of similar enough sizes, and with some strategic pinning, the dresses won't look bad on us at all. If anything, it's fun to use my dressmaking skills once more. I'd nearly forgotten the particular satisfaction of creating a well-fitting garment. Lena wears a gown of emerald green, dotted with small pink flowers, that ties in a chiffon scarf around her waist. I take my time winding her masses of shiny dark hair into a twist at the nape of her neck. But her hair is as stubborn as she is, and pieces keep springing free. I've never been talented at dressing hair, and Lena eyes me in the mirror as I curse and sigh and stick more pins in her hair. Once I'm finished, she helps me into a cream-colored gown. The short gossamer sleeves are embroidered with delicate, near invisible ivory blossoms in a motif that is echoed in the skirt. Vines of blooms climb up the edges of the floaty fabric, ending in the sash of light pink tied at my waist. Unlike Lena's dress, mine has a low neckline, and the bite of cool fall air drifting in from the window on my collarbones makes me feel dangerous. Maxine marches into our room wearing a gown of light blue silk with a dark cobalt coat thrown on over it. Her hair is pinned up and secured with a matching silk ribbon tied around her head like a halo. I'll never look at her at ease in my skin as she does, leaned up against the door jamb. "How did you get dressed so quickly?" Lena mumbles. Around the pin she has balanced between her teeth, and she continues to put up her hair. "I made some of the younger girls help me," Maxine says. "They were awfully jealous to have not been invited along." "And your hair?" I ask. "That little Cora is awfully talented. Her aunt was a lady's maid for a Rockefeller." "Well, la-di-da," Lena murmurs, still pinning my hair up in something close enough to a bun. We both look at my reflection in the mirror and shrug simultaneously. I look fine enough. I'll never have Maxine's icy beauty or Lena's lit from within glow, but I'm fine. I look fine. As we walk out the door, Ruby turns up her nose and says it's un-American to think women should have the vote. Aurelia gives us a sad smile, then nods in agreement. Helen is waiting for us by the ambulance in a maroon traveling suit, her frizzy hair contained under a wide-brimmed felt hat. "Thank you again for taking us along," I greet her. Her face is annoyed at best. "Ah, well, Maxine does love to get her way, does she not? Plus, it's not like anyone will recognize you and Lena." "But I'm from New York," I quickly remind her. "Not this kind of New York." Lena and I share an uncomfortable glance. From the front seat, Maxine rolls her eyes and mouths. Ignore her. Helen loads us into the back of the rickety ambulance, and we take off through winding country roads into the city. Only a few miles pass before the air grows heavy with the scent of rain, and the crackle of electricity speaks of lightning to come. Helen hurtles our automobile across the 59th Street Bridge and into streets of Manhattan around horses and pedestrians. My stomach is turning so badly. It's a relief when we park, even though the cobblestones are difficult to navigate in my borrowed shoes. It's surreal to be back in the city after so long, and I can't help but wonder how everything about it has stayed the same. I have been profoundly changed by my own time, but the city has continued on without me. Carriages rattle past us, boys shout the day's news, evening papers clutched in their little hands. On the sidewalk, we weave between people on their way home. I search for Oliver in their faces out of habit. Next to me, Maxine and Lena are silent. Tethers of tense energy stretch between us. After a month in the open air of Queens, it's a relief to once again be surrounded by tall buildings. It feels like they are embracing me, welcoming me home. Helen rattles on about how the city is bad for her nerves. The three of us manage to nod and smile on cue, but our minds are on the resurrection. We make it to the meeting with only minutes to spare. The New York Women's Suffrage Association holds their meeting in the dank basement of a Methodist church on West 13th Street. The arched doorway is small and grim compared to the electric lights flashing on the rest of the street. We pass down a carpeted staircase and into a meeting room. On the walls, sweeping felt banners declare "Forward," through the darkness, forward, into the light, and women need suffrage to end sweatshops. Rows of simple wooden chairs sit facing an unoccupied podium. There is a hearty crowd of women, mostly in middle age, all white, milling about and mingling. Helen greets a few like old friends and introduces us with a warm smile. "Anna," she greets a young brunette woman with rosy cheeks. "This is my niece Maxine and a few of her school friends." She gestures to us, and we offer small waves. A taller blonde with riotous curls springing from her low bun approaches us next. Her grey dress is adorned with Votes for Women pins. "Ladies," Helen turns to us, "this is Ethel, Anna's sister, the election district captain." Ethel can't be much older than Maxine. She must be particularly accomplished to be running a chapter like this, so young. Ethel laughs and replies, "Oh, only the captain for now. Once Alice gets out of prison, she'll be back at the helm. Let's just hope it's before my next arrest." "Arrest?" I ask. Understanding dawns on Ethel's face as she realizes I'm not joking. "Ah, yes, we are thrown in prison quite frequently, being a public nuisance, failure to pay fines, breaking and entering." She lists the charges off on her fingers. She finds my silent horror amusing. The sparkle in her fox-like hazel eyes is similar to Maxine's. "Sometimes prison's a nice reprieve from those pelting us with trash on the streets." My mouth gapes as I imagine the strength it must take to bear something like that. I wonder if I'll ever be that brave. She turns to Helen, and they continue chatting about the state of marches and strikes. Beside me, Lena shifts uncomfortably. "What's the matter?" I whisper to her. She shrugs her shoulders in response, and I jab her in the side with my elbow and give her a look. "Lena?" "Look around," she whispers. "None of these women are looking at me." I hadn't noticed. "I don't understand," I reply. "These women don't care about me. They're fighting so that girls like you can vote alongside your rich, white husbands, not girls like me." Any sadness in her eyes is quickly replaced with fury. My face burns red with shame because she's right. I did not notice, nor would I have had she not pointed it out. The world is broken in so many ways. What good is it having magic if we can fix none of them? What good am I if I'm so self-absorbed I don't even notice? But guilt without action doesn't do Lena any good. "You want to know the stupidest thing?" she continues. "The founding fathers stole the model of democracy from the Iroquois Confederacy, bastardized it, and everyone called them geniuses. These women are doing more of the same. Only certain kinds of people get to be equal." I reach down and take her hand in mine. "You deserve a better world than this one." Her steely eyes set on mine. "So do we fight, or do we search for safety?" she asks. "I think I want to fight," I say. Lena casts a glance at the women around us. "Then we can't lose." Before I can respond, Anna steps up to the podium at the front of the room and bangs a gavel. The noises echo sharply through the meeting hall, and the women quiet and take their seats. Sisters, welcome, she greets them. Today is a joyous occasion. Since our last meeting, California passed a suffrage amendment to their state constitution. How wonderful it is to have a victory to celebrate. Lena's hand falls from mine. As I take a few steps backward, I linger near the stairs. Lena's eyes roam the room before meeting mine. She nods. I take advantage of the celebration to slip out, over dusty rugs and up a narrow staircase until I finally emerge into the dense humidity of New York before a storm. The smell of earth has settled thick in the air. Dark clouds roll in on the horizon, partially blocking out the last light of the dying day. I walk 12 blocks to the Commodore Club quickly, my deft city native feet carrying me through the seas of people stepping around horse manure and garbage, avoiding carriages and cars. It is a ballet I know well, one I miss. The club isn't far from the shop where I worked or the apartment I shared with my mother and William. I purposefully avoid these blocks like a coward too afraid to look at the building through the eyes of new person I have become. I pass the exact corner where I ran into Oliver Callahan, what feels like a very long time ago. Somewhere across town, he's probably warm and laughing in a dormitory surrounded by classmates, and not thinking at all about magic daggers and speaking to ghosts. I reach my destination a few blocks later. It's impossible to miss. The Commodore Club is everything the church where the suffragettes meet isn't. The building is not polite, it roars, taking up nearly a whole city block, punctuated by stark white pillars like teeth in an open mouth. I pat the head of one of the stone lions on the stairs upon my approach. Good evening, please don't devour me whole. I climb the granite steps to the carved oak door quickly, leaving no time to second guess myself. I pick up the door knocker, a heavy brass tag, and I knock 3 times. After a hard beat, an old man in a red velvet coat opens the door. He's small, shorter than I am, and his scraggly white hair is combed over his egg-shaped head. His pencil-thin mustache is dark, like he might have drawn it on himself. In any other circumstance, it might have made me laugh. Evening, miss, he greets me, somehow looking down at me despite his inferior height. What can I do for you? How stupid am I to just now realize my plan did not go much beyond this moment. I thought Finn would be waiting outside for me, that perhaps he would lead me through a back door like a detective in a novel. I have been so anxious about tonight, I have tried not to think about the details much at all. Perhaps I shouldn't have even knocked. Maybe I have ruined it already. Francis Hallowell, sir. Here to see Finn Darcy. The young Mr. Darcy did not inform us he'd be having a guest tonight, he drawls. I shift my weight from foot to foot. What would Maxine do in this moment? Before I can formulate a clever response, Finn appears at top of the carpeted staircase. He's wearing a tuxedo and all the swagger that comes with it. He hasn't attempted to tame his curls, and the bruise-like shadows under his eyes are even more present in the electric light of the Commodore Club than they are in the dark of Forest Park. He looks handsome, dignified, dangerous. At the sight of me, he cracks a grin, teeth straight and white, as well-formed as the rest of him. You came? I did. He descends the stairs with slow, deliberate steps. He confidently pushes past the small mustached man to take my arm in his. The contact of the bare crook of my elbow against the twill of his tuxedo sends a thrill up my spine. I stomp it down. A woman here, tonight of all nights, Mr. Darcy? The doorman asks him, his tone thick with judgment. She's a guest of boss's. He lies. He takes me up the main staircase, through serpentine halls, past stag heads, stuffed boars, mounted swords, and something that I think might be a pickled human hand in a jar. The walls are fitted with buzzing electric little light sconces, but it hasn't stopped someone from lighting hundreds of white candles that drip wax on every flat surface. Every muscle is tense with anxiety. My dress pinches me. Pins dig into my skull. The heat of film so close to me is sending my stomach into somersaults. I concentrate on my breathing, inhaling and exhaling, trying to focus on the singular task at hand. I cannot afford to be distracted. The emptiness is eerie. We don't pass another person, though occasionally I hear the door downstairs open and the raucous laughter of men floating in from the cold. Finn and I reach a set of ornately carved mahogany doors, so tall they reach right up to the ceiling. "You ready, Watson?" Finn asked with a smile. His eyes crinkle around the edges like something about to crack. "If you are, Watson," I nod. My heart is hammering so hard I wonder if he can hear it. "Once you unlock the door, I'll search the office. You be the lookout. If you see someone coming, slam a door to warn me and do your best to distract them. If they ask why you are here, tell them you are looking for Judge Callahan." "Oliver's father? How do you know Judge Callahan?" "We don't have time." He gestures at the brass doorknob. "I've never been able to pick this lock, nor can I manipulate objects like you can. You can open this door, Francis. I know it." The way he stares at me with such confidence, such belief, makes my chest swell with pride. It reminds me of the belief William always had in me. I stare at the door, close my eyes. Say Digha Sal, please, Francis." I hear Finn whisper, as if from far away. I obey. The word is less elegant out of my mouth. But at once I feel the ripple of magic and the door unlocks with a satisfying click. Finn nods. "Good girl." I swell with pride at his praises. I want so badly to be as good as he thinks I am. He turns the knob, opens the door a crack and slips inside. I'm left standing in the hallway, freezing cold and alone. The first couple of minutes are the worst. I flinch every time the downstairs door opens. With no other outlet for my nervous energy, I pick my thumbnail until it bleeds. "Everything all right?" I hiss through the closed door. His voice is muffled. "Yes, just one more moment." With no more thumb skin left to pick, I count to pass the time. 20 seconds, then 60, then 100, then 200. There are footsteps in the hallway now, a ways down, but too near for comfort. From behind the closed door, the office is silent. "Please hurry," I whisper, perhaps too quiet for Finn to hear. Voices join the footsteps, male, of course, low and rumbling, too far to make out individual words. "Finn," I say under my breath, a prayer, a beg. "Almost finished," he replies. From behind the door there is a tearing of paper, the slide of drawers closing, and the sound of smooth-soled tuxedo shoes on expensive carpet. The steps from the hall get louder, definitely too close. Dread ripples through me. With a flash of power, I hiss "Dorstanga" under my breath. It's a simple enough spell when I learned in the context of housekeeping weeks ago. Far down the hall, close to the stairs, my magic opens and slams a door so hard it would have shaken the floors of a less grand building. Footsteps, faster this time, go off in the direction of the noise. The relief I feel is only momentary. Suddenly, from around the corner comes a man who doesn't look nearly as startled to see me as I am to see him. He's dressed like, I imagine, an Austro-Hungarian diplomat might dress. His outfit is a combination of rich blues and reds, punctuated by gold cufflinks. The chain of a pocket watch is strung across the vest. The man is shaped like a barrel with an up-tipped chin. It is clear he is used to taking up space. He smiles, the terrifying smile of a man who knows he is completely in control. "Kind of here to join us," he greets me. I look around the hallway, attempt to break free, the words lodged in my throat. "I'm not staying long," I blurt. "Just looking for Judge Callahan. It appears I've gotten lost." He screws up his face into an expression of exaggerated sadness. "And not a one of our household staff was polite enough to accompany you? Trust me, my dear, heads will roll tomorrow. But for now, let me show you the way myself." He takes a step toward me, his hand outstretched. I take a step back and glance at a massive ticking wall clock at the end of the hall. "You are too kind, sir, but I've only just seen the time, and my family will be wondering where I am. I hate to interrupt your evening. I'll contact the judge at his office tomorrow." It all comes out too fast, in a singular breath. I fake a smile and will myself to look sweet and small. Nonsense, you are here already. Let's make an evening of it. He claps his hands together and takes a step toward me once more. My back is against the wall now. The chair rail digs into my spine. It's too familiar, this feeling of a giant of a man leaning over me. Damn it, Finn, where are you? As if summoned by my panic, Finn barrels out of the door. Finn, the large man greets him in a delighted voice. What brings you up here? The festivities are about to begin. Ah, yes, sir. We were looking for the judge. Finn grabs me by the hand and tries to walk away, but the Austro-Hungarian diplomat stops him by placing a hand on his shoulder. He sucks his teeth and smirks. My office seems an unlikely place to start. You're right, sir. We had no success. I'll show Francis out now. My hand inside Finn's is sweaty, and he grips it hard to keep it from shaking. The young always in such a rush, the diplomat booms. In my day, we knew how to show our guests hospitality. Please, dear, what is your name? I consider lying, but Finn doesn't give me the chance. This is Francis Hallowell, a relation of our late William, the diplomat asks. I unclench my jaw to reply. My brother. It's hard to believe my brother knew this man, that he lived in an entire world I knew nothing about. My condolences. He was a good boy. I am Boss Olan, leader of our humble social club. The lights in the hall flicker. I desperately need to be somewhere that isn't here. I really best be going, like I said. I've family waiting, and they'll be wondering where I am. I lie smoothly, but Boss Olan raises his eyebrow in amusement. Not a chance, he grins, still looming over both Finn and me. It's only polite we invite you to join our little party. Boss, Francis can't stay. Finn speaks up on my behalf. Oh, don't be ridiculous, he smiles, but his eyes narrow on Finn. Of course, you can stay in my office if you'd prefer. I didn't know you could read well enough to learn a door unlocking spell. I'm proud, really, my boy. The tips of Finn's ears turn red. I can read, sir. Boss Alan laughs. Oh, so you're just slow. Or you can't cast, perhaps both? He ruffles Finn's hair like he would a toddler's, but the force of the gesture bends Finn's neck sharply to the right. Finn takes it silently with a grimace. Come now, young Hallowell. I won't take no for an answer, he says with a flash of smile that looks as if he means to eat me. Panicked, I glance behind me at Finn, who nods reassuringly. He pats his breast pocket. At least he's got the dagger. Boss Olan in front of me and Finn behind me. We walk through a winding hallway past more mounted stag heads and gleaming trophy cases until we reach a back staircase. Noise and the heat of bodies radiate from down the stairs. In a mansion like this, what sort of party is held in a basement? I look back at Finn and mouth. What do we do? His eyes are frightened as he leans forward and whispers in my ear. You can handle anything you come across in that basement. You are brave, Francis. I know you are. His response only sends my panic spiraling further. What's in the basement, Finn? I sound like a child, my voice full of fear I can't control, but Finn doesn't answer. Boss Olan pushes open the doors, and my words are swallowed by the low roar of voices floating up the stairs. Down we go on a staircase so narrow I could stretch out both my arms and touch the walls on either side. Before us stretches a cavernous basement. The dark wood-paneled walls are dotted with carved golden scones that glow dimly and throw shadows. Hanging from the ceiling is a dusty crystal chandelier, alight with melting candles. In the corner, a man in tuxedo plays fiddle. There are dozens of men in the room, young, old, middle-aged, all rich. I can feel the money in the room dripping off them like sweat. More than one is puffing on a cigar, and the air burns with the smell of them. Glasses full of whiskey are clinked and swigged. Their eyes set into all but identical doughy face are trained on me, simmering with raw, unbridled want. From the stairs I can see over their heads to the middle of the room, where a circle of marble edged with gold is set into the floor, 12 or so feet across. What is this place? I whisper to myself, as much as to Finn beside me, but I already know the answer. I've just walked into a lion's den with no way out. Chapter 17. As soon as I reach the bottom of the staircase, a crack echoes through the room. In front of me, Boss Olan bangs his eagle-head walking stick on the flagstone floor 3 times. The crowd pouts for him as silence falls over the room. Sweat and tobacco smoke burn my eyes. I look up at the ceiling. What have I done? Gentlemen, he booms as he struts through the masses. We are gathered here tonight for the most beloved of our many traditions, the cat drashta. The men cheer. I turn to Finn, who stands out next to me, stock still and wide-eyed. What on earth is cat drashta? My question snaps him back to reality. A tradition to awaken the magic of the younger members, see if they are worth anything. Sounds like a perfect distraction. How do we get out of here? I whip around, looking for the exit. We are not far from the stairs. We could still escape. Finn shakes his head. We can't. Boss Olan reaches the front of the room and bangs his cane on the floor once more. It reverberates through the soles of my boots. A hush falls, palpable and reverent. Sickening panic rises in my chest. I tug on the hem of Finn's tuxedo back and look toward the exit. He shakes his head no again, a horrible look of resigned fear on his face, and that's what frightens me most of all. Your bets may be placed with Freddy, Boss Olan continues. Cheating, as always, will be harshly prosecuted. A ripple of laughter moves through the crowd. More tuxedo-clad men seem to be steaming in by the second. The room is thick with shoe polish, sour smoke, and cologne. I think I'm going to be sick. Boss Olan smiles and cracks his cane against the floor yet again. Let us begin. The lights dim, then the chandelier above the marble circle sparks to life, with a snick illuminating the white ring in a spotlight. The room takes a collective intake of breath. The fiddle stops, everything stills, my stomach rolls. Then the crowd parts and a man struts into the ring. He's short and broad-shouldered, wearing a brown suit and a scowl on his face. He paces the perimeter of the circle and throws his arms up. The crowd roars. I cannot leave, so I simply watch with mingled curiosity and fear. On the other side of the ring, there is a brief commotion before another man is shoved into the center. He is in a fine tuxedo, tripping over his shiny shoes. His head whips desperately back and forth, scanning the crowd. Oliver goddamn Callahan. Of course, he's a part of this too. Underneath my initial flash of anger and frustration is pity. He looks as scared as I feel. He attempts to walk away but is shoved back and by one of the crowd inching closer and closer to the golden circle on the floor. Although he's tall, he's too skinny, all elbows and spindly legs, useless in fighting the men pushing him. His eyes dart like a rabbit's caught in a trap as he is forced nearer to the center. The crowd is getting restless. Someone shouts, "Coward!" from the back of the room. I can't hear him over the din, but he's saying something to the men holding him. That might be, "Please, no." And despite all my anger at Oliver, despite my suspicions seeing him here, despite our fraught history, my heart pangs for him, as William's voice rings in my head. "Help him, Francis. He doesn't have any of our street smarts." Oliver's head makes a sickening cracking noise as it hits the marble. It happens so quickly. I don't even see him fall. I only see the dazed look in his eyes from where he lies on the floor. I really might be sick. The other man in the ring looks down at him with disgust and nudges him with the toe of his boot. "Get up!" Oliver pushes himself up and spits blood into the marble. It's a ring. They are in a boxing ring. The room erupts. Cheers, shouting, jeering. My ears are ringing, my mouth agape. I turn to Finn in horror. "We have to help him," I yell. He leans down and whispers, "Just watch." Oliver puts his fist up over his face, but he looks so young and so scared. And suddenly I'm a child again, drinking vanilla floats with him, playing hide and seek. I see his boyish face as he sits on our stoop, laughing with William back when my world was just 8 blocks wide, and the most interesting thing I'd ever seen was the color of Oliver's eyes. But before I can form another coherent thought, the pocket watch is ripped from the breast of the man next to me. It flies through the air and winds itself around one of Oliver's fists, jerking it down to his side. Taking advantage of the distraction, Oliver's opponent stretches out his hand and a glass of champagne flies out of the grip of a man next to the ring. It hovers in the air for a moment before shattering on the floor. The largest shard goes flying at Oliver's cheek, but he dodges it with a duck to his left. "Oliver!" I shout at him. His eyes snap to mine. He does a double take. "Francis!" he cries. "What are you doing here?" I shout through the din. I've done the worst possible thing by distracting him. His opponent uses his fist instead of magic this time and lands a blow square on Oliver's left cheek. By the way his eyes water, it's obvious. He's never been punched before. William was his defender as much as he was mine. The sight of an unwilling tear streaming down Oliver's rapidly swelling cheek makes me feel as if the wind has been knocked out of me too. I can't just stand and watch. Despite everything we have been through, or perhaps because of it, I push myself forward, shove through a wall of solid bodies and the riled up disappointment of men who wanted to see more violence than this. All the while, I scream Oliver's name as Finn calls for me from behind, shouting at me to stop. My brother would not have stopped, and neither do I. Despite every reasonable thought and part of my body screaming for me to leave, I step into the ring. Panic makes it easier to call the magic. Power swells as I send an entire bottle of whiskey flying off a shelf on the back wall and into the skull of Oliver's attacker. It only takes one blow. He crumples to the floor like a marionette cut from its string. The crowd goes wild. The floor vibrates with the stomping of feet. I've never used magic to intentionally hurt anyone before. No, I correct myself. You did not hurt anyone. You saved someone. In front of me, Oliver is very still. His blood stains a bright white marble crimson. I kneel and grab the lapels of his tuxedo. "Are you all right? Should I call a doctor?" He turns his head and spits the blood on the floor again. "At least 10 men in this room are doctors." Finn is suddenly behind me, stony-faced. "You shouldn't have done that." Boss Olan's cane bangs twice against the floor, silencing the room. "A loss for Mr. Callahan and Mr. Bertram, it seems." A roar rises from the crowd. "Your bets are null and void, you dirty gamblers." The roaring turns to laughter. Glasses are clinked. Oliver's blood runs close to my left shoe. His hands are shaking. I seethe with anger at Finn and at myself. I risked so much coming here. I've been so stupid. "No more of this. I'm leaving," I say to Finn through gritted teeth. The stairs look blocked by men, but I'd guess it's our best bet. "I'm sorry, Francis. I'm so sorry," Finn says. He looks pained like he did the other night, when he declared I'd been haunting him his whole life. Before I can ask why, we are interrupted by the sharp rap of a cane against stone. "Place your bets, gentlemen. Next up is perhaps the most exciting match we have ever held." A murmur rolls through the crowd like thunder. Oliver reaches for me as 2 men pick him up by the armpits and haul him out of the ring. He still looks dazed. I need to find a doctor to examine his head. I take a step to follow as the largest man I've ever seen steps into the gleaming marble ring. He's not clad in a tuxedo like most of the other men. He's shirtless, the muscles of his expansive chest and arms on display. He's barefoot too, pacing around the golden perimeter like a caged animal. "Vlad the Impaler," the Hungarian diplomat announces with unbridled glee. Whoops and hollers ripple through the crowd. "Versus..." He pauses for dramatic effect. Finn is warm beside me, but I scan the room for the quickest path to the stairs. This whole thing is a dangerous waste of time. "Francis Hallowell." The room goes quiet. Every head turns toward me. I blink, certain I have misheard. "Excuse me?" I turn to Finn. 2 men appear from the crowd behind me and grab me by the upper arms. They half shove, half carry me toward the center of the wretched ring. Finn grabs onto my hand and holds it like a vice. I throw my shoulder into the man on my right, and Finn pulls and pulls on my other arm to no avail. "Get your hands off her," Oliver cries. He reaches for me, but it's thrown back by the crowd. "Don't touch her," Finn shouts. He's silenced by a punch to the face from the man on my left. His hand slips from mine. "No, no, please," I beg. "Finn! Finn!" In a moment of stillness, in the rollicking chaos, our eyes lock. The men shove, and I dig my heels in. My boots cut a line through the still wet blood. I kick my legs, whipping my head wildly from side to side, searching desperately for a savior I know isn't coming. I try to use the magic to call for something, anything to come flying off the back shelf again, but it doesn't obey. I'm sorry, Finn mouths. Oliver is silent and horror struck. The men's faces blur into one. The marble ring in the center of the room is the eye in a hurricane of sharp-toothed laughs and wadded up cash. In it, Vlad paces. He smiles. The grin reminds me of the look on Mr. Hughes' face minutes before I killed him. I'm a fool, and I'm going to pay for it. Vlad circles me. I tremble like a prey animal. I'm terrified, but more than that, I'm so goddamn mad at myself. A single bottle of whiskey will not take him down. It seems silly to have gotten this far only to be killed in a magical boxing match by a grown man who goes by the name Vlad the Impaler. It's unclear if the sound that escapes my lips is a hysterical peal of laughter or a sob. There's a joke in here somewhere about wanting to see my brother again. Vlad lunges. I sidestep him. Shards of glass crunch under my boots. Vlad lunges again. A crystal from the chandelier above us flies at my eye. I dodge it at the last second with a duck to my right. I bite my tongue and my mouth floods with blood. I'm sure the sons are screaming, but I hear only the rush of blood in my ears. I try to call the magic again, try to really focus, but it sends the whole shelf of alcohol on the back wall crashing down. The men in the audience shout as bottles rain down on them, but it does nothing to stop Vlad. Every magic lesson I've ever had feels so far away. Everything I ever learned in a classroom or the woods is drowned by the buzzing terror in my head. Vlad steps toward me. I stumble back. I search for an exit, but the crowd is a writhing blur, so chaotic I can no longer see Finn or Oliver. There is no one coming to help me. I'm bobbing alone, lost at sea, and my lifeboat is the part of me that scares me most. A shard of glass flies up from the floor and slashes at my exposed collarbone. I swat it away like a wasp. It leaves only a surface wound, but it stings like hell. Vlad keeps coming at me, pushing me to the very edge of the circle. Someone presses their hands to my lower back and shoves me back in. No, no. It's the sensation of a stranger's hand on me that does it. A switch flip. And all at once my fear is replaced with rage. It burns through my body like a spark on a fuse. I will not suffer for their entertainment. They don't get to touch me. Not now, not anymore, not ever again. This time the magic doesn't spark to life under my skin. It explodes like a wildfire. There is a deafening crack as every last glass in the room shatters. The jeers stop for a fraction of a second, but Vlad doesn't hesitate. He raises his hands and sends the shards flying at me in a torrent. I call the power. I don't know what I say to it, only that we speak the same language. A candle falls from the chandelier and sets a loose lock of my hair alight. I wink it out before it does any real damage, and in the same moment, magic a wooden chair from the corner hurtling at Vlad's head. He doesn't see it coming, and it splinters apart as it cracks over his skull. The lessons in the woods with Finn return to me like day breaking. Vlad is so huge, it doesn't stop him. But something shifts in his eyes. He's no longer doing this for the sake of the fight. He hates me. He wants to beat me. I want to beat him more. I don't hear the crowd anymore, but I feel their voices vibrating in my bones. My singular focus is on the man stalking me. Vlad lunges his massive body toward me, and I send another shot of glass in his direction. It slices his forearm, but still he doesn't stop. He's inches away now and burning with rage. He lunges. I dodge and spit out the blood filling my mouth. He raises a fist, and I duck in the wrong direction. He blows land squarely across my cheekbone. A hiss goes through the crowd. Olive screams my name, his voice breaking through the noise. My eyes water fiercely. The punch burns more than I thought it would, though I am probably in too much shock to feel the real pain of it yet. The blow only makes me angrier, only makes me want to fight harder. He pulls his elbow back, preparing to land another blow. I stare him down and command the tendrils of my soul to reach out and grab hold of his body. He freezes, arm cocked back, eyes wide and terrified. Again the crowd goes silent. Don't touch me, I whisper. The same magic I felt 2 nights ago with Finn roars. It's alarming how similar fear and desire feel when it all comes down to it. Vlad's ragged breathing hisses out of his nostrils, but the rest of his body is frozen. I can feel my hold on him. It is harder to channel the power over his body, than it was to control the objects I sent flying at him. I'm beginning to learn how this different kind of magic feels in my body, how it turns in the back of my throat. Taking control of Vad takes like sucking on pennies, or maybe that's the blood in my mouth. I don't know how long I can hold him, but I don't let go. My pulse radiates across my cheek. I can feel my eyes swelling, but I refuse to cry in front of these men. Boss Olen's hyena cackle breaks the silence of the room, and my hold on Vlad. I'm briefly afraid he'll take the opportunity to lunge at me again, but he stands still, just looking at me, his chest rising and falling. Wonderful, Boss Oren cries. Oh, how wonderful! I've ripped the delicate sleeve of Maxine's dress in the fight. Boss Olan strides over to the ring and hoists my hand over my head in victory. His hand is cold and clammy. I snatch mine away, and it sends a ripple of pain through my whole aching body. He leans over and whispers in my ear, "You and I are going to do great things together, Francis." "Because you did such great things for my brother?" I hiss through clenched teeth. I don't wait for his reply. I step out of the ring, arms in front of me, prepared to barrel through wall of bodies enclosing me, but I don't have to fight my way out. The men part for me like the Red Sea. How comfortable it is to be a thing that is feared. I am almost to the back staircase, far away from the crowd, when Finn catches up to me. "Francis, stop!" I turn around, fury and sadness sluicing hot in my throat. "Looks like we can't protect each other, huh? Francis, please." He takes 2 more steps toward me. I back up until the cold of basement wall bites into my exposed shoulder blades. He's so quick. I don't realize he's cornered me until it's too late. Finn leans down and the word goes a little quieter. He whispers, close, too close. "You were incredible." I'm annoyed by his awe. "Did you find the dagger? I don't have much time." From his pocket, Finn pulls an ancient-looking blade, perhaps 4 inches long, with a pearl-encrusted handle. I reach out to touch it. Will it work? There is only one way to find out. He brings his hand to his breast pocket. But that's not all I found. He pulls a folded-up bundle of yellowing pages from his coat pocket and unrolls it. It's a list of names. Membership rolls, Finn explains. "I wanted to see if the boys on Sheepshed Boy are related to the sons. Perhaps another connection with your brother." In the dark of the basement, it takes me a moment to scan down the list. Frank Garza, Samuel Gant, Theodore Gorge, Vincenzo Giannetti, Lorenzo Giannetti, Matthew Farrell. My blood runs cold. The Giannettis, but not a Mario. There's an O. Farrell here too. The last names match those of the dead boys who washed up on the same beach where William was found. This is the definite proof we need that the sons or those related to them may be the target of a murderer. Finn nods in agreement. "It's still something. They could be targeting relatives, or maybe this list is out of date." "So what do we do next?" I whisper. "We find out who killed William, who killed others, show them what a fearsome witch his sister is." The room smells like a lightning storm, crackling hot with magic. I have to go. I want him to think I'm strong, but tears are prickling at my eyes. I'm shaky and angry, on the verge of crying. My eyes hurt and I need to be somewhere that isn't here. "I'll come to you tonight. I want to make sure you're all right," Finn says. I duck under this arm he has pressed to this wall and turn to leave. The basement feels like a hothouse filled with sweat, smoke, and men I don't want looking at me. I have a foot on the stair ready to flee when Oliver approaches from behind and tentatively lays a hand on my shoulder. I shake it off, and he snatches it away and curls it into a fist at his side. "What on earth was that?" he asks me. He is breathing heavily and his eyes dart around the basement. I remember how I felt as if my whole world shifted the moment I was told magic was real. I wish I had some way to explain it to him in a way that made any sense. I settle on, "The world is strange." "That was more than strange, Francis." At the sight of Finn, he blinks in surprise. "It's been a long time, Finn, right?" "Nice to see you again," Finn replies through a strained smile. I feel very small, standing between my brother's friends and his world he inhabited without me. Oliver breaks a stare from Finn and shifts his glance toward me. His eyes are still as kind as I've always remembered them to be. It's this familiarity that makes my shoulders release, my hands go limp. He nods up the stairs. Let me walk with you. And I do. I follow him up the stairs but can still feel Finn's gaze boring through me as I climb the narrow passage. He doesn't follow. My pounding heart slows with each step away from the basement. Oliver and I are almost to the front door when the sound of someone clearing their throat makes me turn. Boss Olam rises from an armchair in front of a massive roaring fireplace. I hadn't seen him leave the basement. Leaving so soon, Miss Hallowell? He strokes the eagle head of his cane as he takes in Oliver at my side. Oh, and you have found a friend. We are going, I say. A shame. Magic comes under the surface of my skin. You know you can't stop me. I don't wish to. You are here as our guest. And this is how you treat your guest? I laugh bitterly. I can barely see through my swollen eye. A twin bruise brooms around Oliver's. You are an extraordinary creature, Francis. We want to help you. And Oliver, dear boy, I'm sorry if all that came as a shock. We were hoping you'd be talented. It appears like your father. You will have to serve us in other ways. Oliver clenches his jaw. The windows are dark. The rain beats against the pavement in a torrent as the storm finally fractures from promise to reality. Still, I'd rather be outside, standing in the river of sludge pouring down the street, than here. From downstairs, I can still hear sickening cracks, followed by elated cheers. What do you mean, talented? Oliver sounds as angry as I've ever heard him. Did my father know you were going to throw me into that ring? What sort of operation is this? What sort of tricks are you pulling? Boss Olin booms a laugh, leaning back with the force of it. The flickering fire has made this room too hot. My dear boy, you will understand in time. The cat der Hukta isn't elegant, but it does have its purposes. I'm sorry you're sore. You lost. I didn't lose. I'm not sore about anything. I simply wish to know what kind of organization it is you're running here. I was led to believe this was a social club. Oliver jets out his chin, defiant, like using 1,000 words to ask a question when he could use only a few, makes him sound grown up. We are the ancient order of the Sons of St. John, the kings of New York City, magicians of the highest order, General Bonvoi, etc. We can be social, we can be many things. I doubt I'm the first person to tell you that that's not a helpful description, I snipe. Each of his fingers is encircled with a thick gold ring. The maroon of his silk jacket shines like the blood we left in puddles in the marble boxing ring. Oh, you're delightful, young Francis. Your brother was a delight too. I cannot wait for the things we'll do together. I'm biting my lip so hard it stings. I lick away the blood before asking, what things? You are stifled at your little school. They're teaching you small magic. You, my dear, were not meant to be a practitioner of small magic. Are these my choices for magic then? Housework or bare knuckle boxing? It's too depressing a thought to accept. I gesture to my swelling eye. I'm not sure I find magical fights a more appealing venture than magical swing. Boss Olan laughs once more. Real magic is power, and these parlor tricks help us hold on to that power. You leave those witches of yours, and we'll show you what we can really do. It's absolutely terrifying. The part of me that wants what he's saying to be true. But my eye socket throbs, and I'm terrified. Maxine and Lena have already left the city, and my mother taught me never to take the word of men in shiny shoes. I'm leaving now. Boss Olan doesn't rise from his chair. He lazily lifts his pointer and middle fingers from the armrest, and instantly the fire in the hearth triples in size. Without pause, a cold wind whips through the room from nowhere. The grandfather clock in the hall gongs. A stack of mail rises from a side table in a perfect swirling tornado. And then, most terrifyingly, my own feet begin to move, completely against my will. In jerking steps, Boss Olan brings me across the room to his side. It is not lost on me that he could force me to kneel at his feet if he wanted to. He doesn't. He looks up at me with confidence of a man who believes he is untouchable. Oliver shouts in protest, but I whip my head to him. I can handle this, Oliver. I don't like Boss Olan, but I also don't fear him. At least not in this moment. He's just trying to make a point. I'm so desperate for any information. I will let him make it. It's better to let men like Boss Olan think they have won. Boss Olan stares up at me from where he sits. The flickering of the fireplace illuminates his face in coalish shadows. The streets of the city run with blood from a war that's been going on since it was called New Amsterdam. Those witches will tell you pretty stories about duty and sisterhood. He screws up his face like the word disgusts him. But we alone can help you get everything you wish. He releases his hold on me, and I lash out in return, manipulating his fingers back down onto the chair. He smiles at the force of it. I don't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. I can't get out quickly enough. I don't look back as I tug Oliver with me. Boss Olan calls after me from where he still sits in front of the roaring fire. When you return to your little school and your little magic, remember what you did here tonight. Remember and come find us. The blast of cold air as I throw open the front door is a relief. In the second before I slam it behind me, I hear one last chuckle from in front of the fireplace. Chapter 18. Oliver and I step out on the rain-soaked street. The air is heavy with the smell of sewage and damp garbage. Maxine's delicate dress sticks heavily to my skin as it becomes laden with rain. My whole body still feels electric. For the first time in a very long time, I was brave. It's hard to be brave when you are sad, and I've been so sad for such a long time. Are you all right? Oliver asks, but the thunderstorm carries his question down the gutter, where it washes away with all the other useless things. I don't answer, so he tries another question. Why aren't you at the sanitarium? Ah yes, my cover story. How quickly I forgot that I'm supposed to be laid up with tuberculosis. How did you know about that? Do you remember in the letter you wrote me, you said you went to the police station every Sunday at 10 a.m. to ask about Will's case? He looks down at his shoes. I went a couple of weeks ago. I should have done it sooner, but I finally felt ready, and I wanted to see you after. He sighs. Well, anyway, you never came, and when I asked an officer about you, he told me what happened. Some story about the owner of your shop being found dead, and you getting diagnosed with tuberculosis all in the same day. Quite the story. Rotten luck, I mutter. You seem well enough now. I snuck out. It's a terrible lie. He doesn't believe me, and I don't blame him. He takes a stunning breath. His hair is dark, wet, and stuck to his forehead. I swear he's grown again. It's the strangest thing. I tried to write to you, but no one could tell me the address. I wrote a dozen letters addressed to you, sent them around to every sanatorium in the state just to be thorough, but it doesn't seem you received any of them. You wrote me letters? I asked. A small voice in the back of my head, the one I try to ignore, understands what he truly means. He tried to find me. Of course, he whispers. And the way he says it makes me feel like I've been put into the ring again. Emotions raging like a church bell ringing in a storm. I don't have the time for this, to sort through what it means. Instead, I shrug my shoulders. You know how the mail can be, I offer as an excuse. He narrows his eyes. It hurts to be looked at by him with so much skepticism, even though I deserve it. Why are you here? He asks. I was invited here by a friend. It was probably foolish to have come, I say. He frowns. Was it Finn? I let myself imagine for a moment that he's jealous of me spending time with a boy who isn't him. I didn't realize you two were acquainted. I don't know him well enough to speak badly of him. I never understood why your brother seemed so taken with him and his friends. Perhaps They were more exciting than me. It hadn't occurred to me until now that Oliver may have been hurt by William's obsession with the sons of St. John and his new job with them as much as I had been. So why'd you come here tonight? I asked. Even in the dark of this rain-soaked street, the bruise blooming around his eye is visible. He always seemed so confident, so untouchable. Seeing him this lost makes me want to cry. The Commodore Club is where my father's gentleman's club meets. I was invited here tonight to meet with them. I thought perhaps he finally believed I was old enough to join them without embarrassing him. One moment I was drinking a scotch, the next I was being shoved into that basement, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. He tips the head up to the sky and lets the rain fall over his fine features, bruised now from the fight. You did something in there. It was like magic. That man inside called it magic. He can barely choke out the word. You didn't know? Between his father and William, I'm shocked Oliver has been left in the dark about all this. It must have been very lonely. Oliver shakes the rainwater from his hair. I'm beginning to think I don't know anything. The stupid thing is, I knew my father loved Will more than he loved me, but I was still so jealous he found him a position with the Sons, when he wouldn't even let me enter the building. Said I was too young to join, and did not listen when I reminded him Will was only 3 months older than I was. But he was right. Will was better equipped to handle all this than me. He had a higher tolerance for the absurd. Said it was annoying that I always needed things to make sense. Raindrops drip from his fingers, hanging heavily at his side. I think I probably need to go home and vomit. I wish I had the right to say the right thing. I gesture to the air, as if my whirling hands could possibly communicate what I'm thinking. You're not crazy, you're not seeing things. So it was magic? Oliver sounds pained. I shrug. If that's the word you want to use. His facial expression changes, like he's seeing me for the first time. It's enough to make me stumble backward. I'm sorry, Oliver. I wish I could stay, explain. My voice trembles only slightly. I won't let my feelings get the best of me, not when Maxine and Lena are waiting. If they haven't left yet, that is. God knows what trouble we'll be in. I really do have to be somewhere. My boots squelch against the wet sidewalk as I turn and leave him alone for the second time in months. I'm sorry, Francis, he calls after me. I'm so far down the block, his voice is barely audible over the rain. For what? I shout. It's a movement that aches. Oliver shrugs his shoulders. His tuxedo is soaked through. Everything. My heart beats wildly against my ribcage. I know what he means. I run the 12 blocks to the Methodist church where the suffrage meeting is being held. By the time I arrive, my hair is soaked matted mess at the back of my head, and the hem of Maxine's beautiful dress is drained with mud. I hope she will forgive me. I hope I can fix it. The street is quiet, the rain dissipating by the second. I step into the damp basement where women still mill about, speaking to each other in small groups. I can catch bits and pieces of conversation as I pass by them. Strikes, sit-ins, marches. Maxine's eyes widen with horror as she sees me walk in. What on earth happened to you? She asks through her teeth. I was caught in the rain. I smile sweetly because Helen is glaring at us from across the room. But I don't think she means the rain. I think she means my mottled purple eye socket. Helen marches over at the side of me. Where have you been, Francis? I will myself to tear up, and it isn't difficult after the night I've had. I recite the story. Maxine, Lena, and I came up with it 2 days ago when we planned this deception. I tell Helen I missed my friends at the shop so desperately. I could not help but leave the meeting to go see them. Your friends must not have been glad to see you. She eyes my swelling face. I tripped. The rain made the sidewalk slick. I can't say you didn't deserve it. No matter. We have larger matters to attend to. She approaches the tall blonde I spoke with earlier. Ethel, are you ready? She asks in a low voice. Ethel gulps. I suppose as ready as I'll ever be. With Ethel at her side, Helen leads us outside to where the ambulance is parked on the curb. Even with Maxine up front, the back of the ambulance is awfully crowded with one more body. Sorry about your tuberculosis, Lena says to Ethel. Helen told me we are off to a professional courtesy. Well then, I'm sorry about your magic. Ethel sniffs. Go on a hunger strike. Come out with magical powers. I do feel bad about the guard though. Don't. The rest of the drive back to school is long and oppressively silent. Helen sits in the driver's seat, angry with me for disappearing during her carefully planned field trip. Maxine sits in the front seat, probably angry with me for ruining her dress. Lena sits in the back of the ambulance, rightfully angry with all those close minded suffragettes. Ethel may be seething, I don't know her well enough to tell. And I feel terrified and terrifying. My brain is at war with itself, unable to process all the things I learned about magic and myself tonight. I can still feel the echo of it, how big it made me feel. I crave that feeling again already. It's intoxicating. But then I think of the crunch of whiskey bottle as it crashed into that man's skull, and the raw fear in my opponent's eyes as I seized his body, and I recoil. Tonight I was forced to confront magic's ability to do harm, and I was good at it. What does that say about me? Boss Olan's offer to join them nags at back of my mind. Would running away from Hack 7 to join a man who has made big promises make me exactly like my mother? Or would harnessing my power keep me from making her same mistakes? Finally, we return to school. The gravel crunches as the ambulance slows to a stop in the dark. The white columns of the school look blue. Helen jumps out of the car. Francis, you're on kitchen duty for next 2 weeks. Report to the dining hall at 5 in the morning tomorrow. As if I'm not worthy of another second of her attention, she storms into Hack 7 without a look back, poor Ethel at her heels. See, I told you so, Maxine says. Now you need to tell me everything that happened tonight. She drags Lena and me to her suite on the second floor. I startle upon seeing a redhead girl sitting on a crappy bed in a nightgown. I'm so sorry, darling. Not tonight, Maxine says. The girl's face crumples in disappointment, but she walks out the door without protest. Who was that? May. I drop it. We have more important things to discuss. I pad across the lush navy carpet to Maxine's dressing table, still covered in haphazardly placed necklaces and silver hairbrushes. There are magazines too, open to dog-eared pages of men in dandies' clothes. Candy-colored suits and striped neckties. Like a magpie, unable to resist shiny things, I run my fingertips across the cool rivets of a sapphire brooch. I've told you to take whatever you want. Maxine's voice snaps me out of my trance. Any brooch you want, any dress, whatever strikes your fancy. Her voice is cold. It's all useless. I'll be wearing this cape until the day I die. She sinks onto the bed, looking so exhausted. I don't remind her she's not actually wearing a cape at the moment. I want to be out of this heavy soaked mass of a ruined dress so badly. I nearly take her up on her offer, but she begins speaking again before I can ask her to undo my buttons. So, Hallowell, what the hell happened tonight? I felt the magic do something. There is relief in telling Maxine and Lena. The story comes spilling out of me so quick, I'm tripping over my own words. I can't even look them in their shocked faces until I'm finished. Lena stares at me, mouth agape. Why didn't you just leave? I don't have an answer that makes sense. I don't think I could explain the responsibility I felt for Oliver, the weight of Finn's gaze, or worst of all, the exhilaration of using my magic. I don't know. The look on Maxine's face is hard to decipher. She's pacing the room, pulling her hair out of its bun. What I felt, Maxine mutters. I couldn't breathe, like someone had seized my chest. I don't know how I did it, I say. It wasn't much different from our practices in the woods, but it was more. Like someone let a stopper out of a bottle that was only leaking before. For the first time I felt the true magnitude of this power. What I don't tell them is the terrible satisfaction it gave me. I still feel a little intoxicated. I can't tell them how hungry I am for more. Finn was right. Magic is dangerous. I'm afraid all of Maxine's pacing might wear a hole through the carpet. Francis, you can't let anyone find about this. We take this to our graves. If Vygotsky were to learn about this, Maxine trails off like the consequences are too terrible to speak aloud. I shoot her a glare. Oh yes, Maxine, Mrs. Vygotsky was the first person I thought I'd tell about our forbidden spells and a magical bare-knuckle boxing match. Shut up! My nerves are scraped bare after everything tonight. I'm not in the mood to tolerate Maxine's usual jabs. I don't understand why you are being mean to me about this, I shout aloud. The room goes silent as all three of us listen for something stirring, someone. The last thing we need is a knock on the door from whoever is patrolling the halls. After a tense moment, Maxine sighs heavily and looks up at the ceiling. I'm not trying to be mean, she whispers. I just wish it were me. It's as vulnerable as Maxine has ever been with us. I'm shocked to hear, of all things, she's jealous. If I could give this power to you, I would, I reply. But I don't know if it's the truth. If it gets me one step closer to the resurrection spell, finding what happened to my brother, I would never give it up, not for a second. Lena hardly speaks during the whole exchange. She just looks at me, her eyes narrowed, fiddling with a piece of dark hair that's come undone. Her unending stare is more unsettling than Maxine's frantic pacing. When Maxine is convinced I can give her no more answers, Lena and I climb the stairs to our room together. I'm frustrated and hurt. I needed to feel their support tonight. Instead, I feel chastised. Are you all right? Lena asked me as I reach the door. She looks like she needs a hug as badly as I do. No. Are you? She frowns. No. I pull her into my arms and it's awkward. I'm too angular and she's too tall. But it makes me feel a little better. We exchange sad smiles and go quietly into the darkness, careful not to wake up Ruby and Aurelia. I'm still uncomfortable from my conversation with Maxine. I'd pity her if I weren't so annoyed. It feels typical she'd find a way to make this about her. I fall asleep quickly, the magic having burned around through my energy like a flame on a wick. I dream I'm standing on the lush field of the Blockula. Finn is waiting at me. The meadow is awash with tiny crimson blooms, as if the grass had been splattered with fresh blood. The light bends wrong here. His white shirt is unbuttoned around the neck. A crescent of mottled purple is sketched beneath each of his eyes. I wonder when the last time he truly rested was. Hi, Finn. I wondered distantly if I could control his body in this dream landscape. He fiddles with his fingers and casts a glance at the ground. I never should have taken you. You could have died. But I did not die. Finn scrubs a hand across his jaw. There's something tortured in his eyes as he takes me. Does your eye hurt? I bring the tips of my fingers to my eye socket. It's tender, here in the dream, but not unbearable. I'm not sure how real life's pain translates into dream pain. His eyes swollen too, from where he got socked trying to stop them from dragging me into the ring. Does yours? He shrugs. I've had worse. He takes a breath. What you did tonight was extraordinary. His voice is thick with awe. He's gazing at me like I'm magic itself. Boss Olan invited you to join us, didn't he? How did you know? I just know him. He collects people with extraordinary power, the way ordinary men collect stamps. It's the exhausted way Finn says it that makes me wonder if that was what happened to him. A child with a broken leg taken by a man he did not know, across a great wide ocean to an unfamiliar city. He must have been terrified. Why would he need me? It seems the Suns have plenty of magic without me. All magic is complicated and individualistic. We have our own finders and clairvoyants and mind readers, but we don't have anyone who can manipulate like you, other than Boss. He's been looking for a protege, but none of us are powerful enough. Powerful enough. The thought is thrilling and nauseating. I can't admit the truth to Finn, which is that I'm not convinced I have any particular special power. I think Maxine or Lena or any of my classmates would have reacted the same as I did in that ring. He chews on his lower lip. So are you going to accept the offer? Has a witch been invited to join before? The thought of leaving Haxhaven makes me uncomfortable. For all its flaws, it has become a sort of a home. And after what I saw tonight, the Suns don't necessarily seem a better option than the one I currently have. He furrows his brows. Not that I know of. Do you want me to join? This question makes me most nervous of all. Finn thinks for a moment. Of course I do. What if I don't feel like having quite yet? The food here is good. Finn frowns. I thought he'd laugh. What if leaving made it easier to find out what happened to William? To the other boys? I should have known he'd use this. The one bartering chip he knows I can't turn down. I'm not convinced of it yet. I don't know how to explain it to him without sounding weak. Perhaps I'll feel different when I'm less bruised. Say what you will about the witches of Haxhaven, they have never punched me in the eye. Finn exhales through his teeth. I'll make them pay for what they did tonight. I want to ask how he plans on exacting his revenge, but I doubt he'd take kindly to my condescension. It was clear tonight just how little a sway Finn holds within the Suns. It's not worth it. Whatever it is you choose, we are in this together. I'll see you soon, Francis. Something violently real flickers in his hazel eyes. My clever retort gets stuck in my throat. I blink away. My socket throbs, terrified and terrifying. Before dawn, when the light is still purple, I wake for the kitchen duty. I'm exhausted and frustrated with myself, but as punishments go, it's benign. So I button my cape, braid my hair, and sneak quietly out of the room so as to not wake the others. Florence meets me at the door, much like the night when Maxine, Lina, and I first snuck out to meet Finn. She raises an eyebrow. Helen said a group of girls haven't given her this much trouble since Alice Roosevelt and her friends set a U.S. senator on fire. What did he do? I ran away to see my former school friends, I lie. And they punched you? She chuckles, eyeing my bruised face. I tried. Come on then, I'll teach you how to make biscuits. In addition to Florence, there is Anne, a plump woman as pale as the biscuit dough I'm kneading. Anne makes me scrub the ovens with a spell that levitates, a scoring brush, but I don't mind it much. Cleaning has always given me a certain kind of satisfaction. The kitchen is quiet, all brick floors and glowing hearths. It is the heart of Haxhaven, if it has one at all. The repetitive work gives me something to sort through the tangle of thoughts in my head. Witches can manipulate other people. I shouldn't be allowed to manipulate other people. Do I even want to be able to manipulate other people? I think I'm rather good at it. A person who is better than me would feel terrible about what they did in the basement of the Commodore Club instead of being desperate to try again. Good girls don't steal daggers and break whiskey bottles over people's heads. Good girls don't have a fire in their chest that begs for more things to burn. Working in the kitchen is a little like early morning tutoring, but without teachers who make me want to rip my own hair out with boredom. The way Florence can scramble a whole pan of eggs from across the kitchen with her mind while stirring a pot of oats with her hands, it's a kind of practical magic work we are taught in Mrs. Roberts' class. Efficient and quick, but Florence and Anne are more powerful than anyone I've ever seen. Can you move that broom over here, love? Anne asks me on my second day. I'm not afraid of my power as it awakens in my chest. The broom falls from where it is propped on the wall. Moving a broom proves trickier than a person. Magic is an unpredictable, finicky thing. Good, but not quite what I was looking for, she says kindly. Try this. Sopa golvetia, she murmurs under her breath. The broom sweeps an elegant arc at her instruction. With a clumsy tongue, I repeat her words. Sopa golvetia. The broom floats off the floor, rotates in midair, so the bristles are facing downward, then makes a jerking sweep motion across the floor. Florence smiles and wipes her hands on her apron. Good girl, keep practicing. And I do. Every morning I arrive in the kitchen, and every morning my control grows. I hop out of bed with excitement, motivated by my time with Anne and Florence each day. Every inch of progress feels like getting to know myself better. By Wednesday, I'm able to sweep the whole floor without so much as elevating my heart rate. Florence tells me I'm learning faster than any pupil she's ever seen. I swell with pride. Is this what you girls are doing in the park? Practicing? You're sweeping? She asks with a smile. Florence is so kind. I almost want to tell her the truth. It might be a relief to tell an adult about everything. I can picture it now. She'd stroke my back and tell me everything is okay. She'd probably know what to do next. But she wouldn't help me with resurrection, so I smile back and say, "No, you're just a great teacher. Why don't you teach your own class?" She purses her lips at the stove and goes still. Mrs. Vaikotse believes Anne and I are more of use to the school here. We both disagree with Anna on a great deal, call it different philosophies, but we share the same love for the girls here, don't we, darling? Anne turns, a spatula gripped in her hand. Yes, dear, we do. During the day, I sit quietly in my classes, and despite my efforts to pay attention, all I can focus on is the triviality of them. I have started to openly lie in Mrs. Lee's class. Talking about my absent father, who I've never spared much thought for, is easier than talking through the things that still ache inside me. So I spin tragic tales of missed birthdays and Christmases until Mrs. Lee is satisfied with my pain. The sons of Saint John are correct about one thing: Haxhaven has no interest in teaching us to be powerful. Every lesson, every conversation, every skill taught is focused on keeping our powers under a careful lock and key. Burn the magic off like leaking kerosene lest we all explode. My morning lesson with Florence and Anne helps, but it doesn't scratch the same itch as the Commodore Club. Maxine and Lena notice my mind wandering. We are all lying in Maxine's bed on one night after dinner. My head on Maxine's stomach, her legs draped over Lena. Maxine is reading, Lena is stitching, and I'm just staring at the ceiling. A penny for your thoughts, Maxine asks. They're not worth that much. Everything is always so dramatic with you, she sighs and returns to her book. What is it they say about the pot and the kettle? I roll my eyes, but hate that she's right. I hate the part of me that wants more than this. I'm warm with friends in a school of goddamn magic, but it's not enough. It's like my very soul is growing inside me. It yawns during lessons. By the time the world has gone dark, it's itching under my skin, begging for something to latch onto. Horrible thoughts come like hail knocking on a window, slow at first, then constantly. What if I made Maxine give me that last piece of pie? What if I made Lena stand up? What if I made Aurelia slap Ruby? What if? I try to brush them away, but the thoughts come back with more force the longer I ignore them, until they're screaming in my head, demanding to be heard. Most nights I retire to my room early, not staying up to talk and laugh in the sunroom like most of the girls my age. Kitchen duty makes a good excuse. I stop sleeping. I'm terrified and terrifying. To be continued. If you are liking this audiobook so far, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Your support motivates me to create further content. Thank you so much, and I'll see you with part 7.